Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Now before we get started, I just want to remind you to please hit subscribe to become an official resident of LJV and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews and women's wrestling figure related videos like today. Now, we are getting so close to 5,000 subs in LumberJillville. I'm really hoping to reach that goal before the 5-year channel anniversary, which is in a couple weeks. So if you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do below. Now today I am here to give my personal top 10 women's wrestling figures revealed at the WrestleMania figure reveals. Now before I get into my number 10 pick, I have to say this year was a little confusing. So usually there's multiple nights of reveals. I think usually 2, sometimes 3. Now in the past, the day 1 of the reveals, which was this past Thursday, shows the almost finished figures. So figures that you can have in a display case, whether they're unpainted or they are painted, you know, figures that are on the horizon, we get those revealed. And then day 2, usually there's a panel where they show a bunch of 3D renders of upcoming figures. And this year, we didn't really get it spaced out like that. I think, as far as I know, we got it all on day 1. Which is a little confusing because it did say even on ringside, hey, the reveals start Thursday. When in all actuality, they start and end it on Thursday. Unless something pops up at the time of this recording. You know, this is Easter Sunday as I'm recording this, so happy Easter, everybody. And it is night 2 of WrestleMania. And we haven't gotten any more reveals than what we saw that first day. So I know a lot of people in my comments were saying the same thing as me, like, hey, what happened to the day 2 reveals? Are there going to be more reveals? I don't think we're going to get any more. I think they basically just threw everything at us in one day. So, yeah, I was thrilled compared to last year for what we saw. And there are so many women's wrestling figures coming out that I'm excited for. But it took some mind power and it took some decision making to make my top 10. So without further ado, let's roll in to number 10. Kyrie saying a main event figure. So I know a lot of you are probably scratching your head saying an unpainted main event figure. How the frick did that make the top 10? Well, I put a lot of effort and reasoning into my top 10 because truthfully, I could have done a top 15. You know, there were a lot of really cool reveals shown. And this Kyrie made number 10 for a very important reason. And that important reason, and this is all kind of spitballing and guessing, but if this Kyrie is in her Saudi gear, I would be so excited. Now, I feel a certain way about those Saudi shows when WWE goes over there. I don't watch them. I go back and watch the women's matches, but yeah, it just rubs me the wrong way with how women aren't treated equally over there, and I can't support that, but I definitely support the women. And there's something empowering about these women having to go over there and wrestle and cover up their entire bodies, but boy, do they have some sick, awesome, and thought-out attire whenever they do that. There's something empowering about that being released in a wrestling figure form. We've gotten Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Alexa Bliss, and Sasha Banks, which is actually the 4 horsewomen, the 4 pillars of LumberJillville, if you will. And I love when they release the women's wrestling figures in that gear, in that attire. I just think that's really cool. So I didn't even cross my mind that this Kyrie might be in Saudi gear until I was doing the live stream reveals. And someone in the chat said, hey, she might be in her Saudi gear. And I perked up right away, and I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even think that. I just thought maybe she was in street gear or promo attire or something like that. So I would love if this Kyrie came out in her Saudi gear. So we'll wait and see the painted product, how it's actually going to be dressed up with the attire. But yes, if this Kyrie is in her Saudi gear, then it's an easy top 10 pick for me. This Lyra Valkyria Elite is number 9 because it looks fantastic. Now, this is just a 3D render, and I keep looking down because I have the image in front of me. That way I can give my thoughts here. Now, this just looks tremendous. It looks amazing, and I feel like this is an example of Mattel putting a little more effort into their women's wrestling figures. Now, what I mean by that is for many, many years, and for the most part, they just reuse parts. Even when they don't match the superstar, they just reuse parts, just throw them together and say, hey, the attire, the deco's nice. You know, there's your Bianca Belair. Okay, but why isn't Bianca more muscular? Why doesn't she have a unique torso? You know, why do a lot of these women's wrestling figures they released not have unique sculpts to them? You know, I've said this before that AEW Jaguars over the last year or so has knocked it out of the park with individualizing each one of their women's figures released. And I think that's amazing. These women are beautiful for their own identities, their own body shapes, their own physiques. And Mattel really hadn't paid much attention to that, but I think they might be starting to turn the corner. You know, the most recent Elite 117 Naomi had unique sculpted pieces. And then seeing an Elite like this Lyra that has, it looks like a shrunken down version of Lyra. It looks amazing. I love the unique torso. I love that she has muscular legs. And I absolutely love how it looks like Lyra. If you look at the main event Lyra that came out, it's not the worst likeness, but it's just kind of a probably one of the most boring figures I've ever reviewed on the channel. And that's a shame because Lyra is amazing. She is such a talented superstar. This goes all the way back to her time in NXT UK. So I did not expect them to show off an Elite of her, but I am so freaking excited that she is getting an Elite. But not only that, but that it looks like it has a lot of love put into it because she deserves it. The Ultimate Edition Chelsea Green. Now, it is unpainted. We don't know what she's going to come with. We do know that she's probably going to have 2 different face sculpts and scans, which is cool. And I imagine she'll come with her entrance attire. Now, will she come with the Women's United States Championship? We're going to cross our fingers there. But either way, I believe this is first shown off by the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast at their live show. You know, Matt Cardona is married to Chelsea. He is one of the kings of wrestling figure collecting. So the fact that we're getting Chelsea in Ultimate Edition form is awesome. I can't say enough good about her. I think she's amazing. She's the freaking logo of LumberJillville. So that's how much I think of her. Now, I know, with that being said, how much I love Chelsea, how I got to meet her in person, how she's the logo of my channel. You're probably wondering, well, why is she number 8? Why isn't she in the top 5 of my countdown? And the main reason being is we don't know what it's going to look like when it's painted yet. She's already had some pretty cool main event figures, some pretty awesome elites, and also I don't understand how they haven't showed an Ultimate Edition of Io Sky, or more importantly, Liv Morgan yet. I think there are some women that should have gotten Ultimate Editions before Chelsea, and I'm not one of those people that says, oh, she doesn't deserve one over this person, but there are some glaring omissions to the Ultimate Edition line that I think Mattel needs to address. Now, one of them is addressed, and it'll be later on in the countdown. But yeah, so I'm really, really excited to get a Chelsea Green Ultimate Edition, but it's not lower because we don't know if she's going to come with the United States Women's Championship or what her attire is going to look like. So I think once we know that, or if we knew what the attire was, what the sculpts look like, and if she was coming with that title, if we knew all that, then it would definitely be a top 5 pick for me. But as it stands, I think it's more of a tease because we're not really sure what she's going to come with, how it's going to look. But I am super excited that Chelsea's getting an Ultimate Edition. Chelsea is amazing. Keelani Jordan's upcoming main event figure. Now, this might be another shocker in my top 10, especially my top 7 here. But I actually love the fact that Mattel is making a figure of an NXT superstar who is, you know, relatively new to the scene. She has been with the company for over a year now, and she has accomplished a lot of great things. But a lot of times, they don't pay that much attention to NXT when it comes to the female talent. And this gives me promise, that gives me hope that, hey, they might actually be watching NXT. They might actually have their finger on the pulse as to some pretty big stars, you know, women that are the future of women's wrestling. And Keelani is one of them. And on top of that, this looks like a fantastic main event figure. Not just the sculpt of the hair, the face we can't really tell yet, right? But there's a lot of unique parts. We're talking about a unique torso, a unique top. I'm just really excited to see what this figure looks like when it's painted, when it's ready to come out. And more importantly, I think this is really exciting that we're getting a female from NXT that hasn't had any main roster appearances. You know, I want to see them make more women from NXT in the figure line. So this is definitely a good step in the right direction. But Keelani is an absolute star, and I'm super excited she's getting a figure. The Wyatt 6 Nikki Cross Elite. I am so freaking excited for this figure. As soon as I saw her as this character, I wanted her in action figure form. The Elite line more so. And the fact that we're getting the entire Wyatt 6 in the Elite line is amazing. Now, something I heard, and at the time, it's just rumor, I think. I don't know if it's for sure. But I heard that the only way to get her is going to be through a 3-pack, and then the rest of the Wyatt 6 will be in a mainline Elite line. And that's frustrating being a women's wrestling figure collector when they do stuff like that. I don't want the other 2 members that's coming with her. I just want Nikki. And on top of that, we've had situations where the only way to get the Ultimate Edition Rhea Ripley and the title was to get an authentic scale ring. The only way to get the LWO Zelina Vega is to get the LWO Elite 5-pack. The only way to get the upcoming Ultimate Edition Brandy is to get her with Cody. And I don't like when they do that because I'm a women's wrestling figure collector and reviewer. That's all I care about. I don't care about the other figures. I think they're great, and there's definitely, you know, an audience for that. But here in LumberJillville, we focus on the women's wrestling figures. So I wish this figure was being released individually. And who knows, it might be. It's just a rumor right now. But yeah, I'm super excited for it, honestly. I think it's going to be really, really cool. But if the rumors are true, I just really wish Mattel would have made one Elite Wave the entire Wyatt 6. That would have been freaking spectacular. But this figure looks amazing. Julia Elite line. Oh my gosh. This figure looks fantastic. Now, it is just a 3D render, but it is a digital 3D render with color, which I love to see. And it looks amazing. My one complaint is it looks like she has a little bit of the Mandy Rose basic figure-itis. What I mean by that is that Mandy Rose basic, her first in line figure, had a huge head. Huge head. And it looks like the head is not in scale with the body here. Maybe it's just the images. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the head might be a little bit big. But I think if that is, you know, shrunken down a little bit, this is an all-time Elite figure. I mean, it looks amazing. Not just the likeness, if you look at the face, but look how beautiful the hair is. Look at the masks she comes with, and look at all the deco that went into her attire. I mean, I haven't seen attire that intricately painted and detailed in quite some time. And quite frankly, Julia is one of my favorite wrestlers right now in WWE, not just NXT. And that's another reason why she's on this countdown is she has only appeared in NXT as far as WWE programming goes. So the fact that she's getting an Elite and is a primary NXT talent, I love that. I want to see that more. You know, they did do it in the past, you know, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, and so on and so on. But I want to see more of the NXT women included in not just the main event line, but also the Elite line. And this is definitely a step in the right direction. And this Julia looks amazing. I am so freaking excited for this figure, and I can't wait to see what it actually looks like when we actually see the product. As I mentioned, this is just a 3D render, but from what I'm seeing from this 3D render, this figure is going to be amazing. It's going to give the Elite Kyrie Sane competition for the best women's wrestling figure of all time, in my opinion. Lola Vice's upcoming Elite. Now, this shocked me because when we saw 3D renderings of the Lola Vice Elite, boy, I was super disappointed. Not because it looked like a terrible figure, but because it looked like they chose the wrong body part choices for Lola. I've said it before a million times on this channel, even earlier today. What makes these women so amazing and beautiful is their individuality, and they all have their own unique physiques. And Lola has very strong legs, you know, very, very thick lower half, right? And the original 3D renderings didn't display that. It just looked like they just reused any parts they had, and it didn't fit Lola, and it was a head scratcher, and I was really worried how the figure was going to turn out. But then we saw these, and I think they look amazing. Not just does the body sculpt look drastically improved from what we saw in the 3D renderings, but I am stoked to have both of these heads for the Lola. You know, I've said it before that hair sculpts are an important part of the women's wrestling figures when I review them because, you know, a lot of them put a lot of effort and attention into their hair, and I love when Mattel can portray that correctly. And here we have two various hairstyles that are very different. We have her pulled back braids, kind of the MMA fighter Lola, which is awesome, and then we have the beautiful flowing hair. One of my favorite hair sculpts of all time from how I'm just looking at it right now. It just looks, it's voluminous. I don't know if that's a word, but it's full of volume. Definitely looks beautiful. And yeah, I just am really, really excited for the Lola Vice Elite now. When I first saw images, like I said, I was worried the 3D render really didn't do her body justice. But here, it looks amazing. It looks like they really did correct the path, and the body part choices here are really, really good, and I'm just super excited to see the final painted version of this figure. And on top of that, I'm a huge fan of Lola. I just think she's really, really good, and she's really made such an improvement from when she first started to now, and I think she has an amazing character. She's freaking awesome, so I'm really excited to get a Lola Vice Elite in my collection. Bayley Ultimate Edition. Finally, Bayley has gotten an Ultimate Edition figure. You know, I've said this for years, that is the biggest glaring omission in the Ultimate Edition line as far as the females go, is that Bayley hasn't gotten an Ultimate Edition. We've had some very deserving women included in the Ultimate Edition line, but Bayley is in that category of a very deserving woman who should have been put in the line years ago, honestly. But either way, I digress. I am just really happy that she's included in the Ultimate Edition line. She deserves it so much, and I'm so glad. And not only that, the figure looks amazing. The detail looks awesome. I love that she does come with swappable arms, so her entrance jacket does look a lot more lifelike than if it would have been just a removable jacket. There's just a lot to love about this figure. Now, they did just give us a couple different angles of this figure, but I'm super excited to see how it looks in all stages. What I mean by that, I'm interested to see if they gave her a unique torso, also if she has butterfly joints. But either way, I'm really, really happy with how the face looks. The attire is absolutely beautiful. The metallic gold and the blue, amazing. And once again, like I said, Bayley is the missing piece of the Ultimate Edition line when it comes to the women. Now, I think Liv Morgan is long overdue for an Ultimate Edition, but Bayley was the one that year after year on my wish list, I would say, where is the Bayley Ultimate Edition? Why have we not gotten a Bayley Ultimate Edition? But we finally have it coming, and I'm super excited. Brandy Rhodes Ultimate Edition 2-pack from Mattel Creations with Cody Rhodes. So I think this will shock a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be like, really? Brandy Rhodes number 2? But here's the thing. I've always had such a respect for Brandy, especially a few years ago. I did some research during Black History Month on a lot of female superstars and what they've accomplished in and out of the ring. And she has accomplished a lot. She has really done a lot. I'll include a graphic right here that I included a couple years ago, and you can see some of her accomplishments. But yeah, Brandy Rhodes is an amazing woman. And honestly, I'm really excited to get her in the Ultimate Edition line because it wasn't on my bingo card. I don't think anyone expected to get a Brandy Rhodes Ultimate Edition. Now, I don't think she's going to have butterfly joints from what I saw, but that's perfectly fine with me. And what we're getting here is a very detailed figure that comes with a jacket. She's in her one-piece American Nightmare attire. Her boot sculpt looks freaking awesome, and the likeness is tremendous. So I've always had a interest in Brandy and her figures. And this goes back to her very first AEW figure, her only AEW figure. It came out in the first series of AEW Unrivaled. And it was very hard to get, very hard to come by. And in my humble opinion, I think the original Series 1 Brandy Rhodes is more rare than any rare or chase that AEW has distributed because it was very limited. I'm not talking about the Series 1 version 2 of Brandy. I'm talking about the original, the OG Brandy Rhodes. That is a very tough figure to come by, and it was when it came out. So, I don't know. I just think it's really, really cool that we're getting this Brandy. Now, I will say, do I think they should have included the kissy faces for Brandy and Cody? That was awkward. You know, the leaked image that everyone saw the night before reveals of those two almost kissing with their lips, that made me uncomfortable. It's just weird. I mean, I get that that was the moment and all that, but I'm not going to be displaying her with the kissy face, and I'm probably not going to keep the Codys in all actuality. I'm just excited for the Brandy, and I'm probably way more excited than I should be. But like I said, Brandy has accomplished so much as not only a female superstar, but as a woman and a black woman. And I just think that's very awesome. And this is a much deserved figure, and I'm really happy for her, but I'm super excited to get it. Wendy Chu's upcoming main event figures. Anyone that watches LumberJillville, that's watched my wish list videos, that's caught any goofy segment I've done in my onesie, knows that Wendy Chu is my spirit animal. She is my favorite superstar. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, her gimmick, it's cringy. She's nappy, she's tired, she's sleepy. But now she's evil. But here's the thing about Wendy Chu, is she has shown that she has done some of the best character work in recent WWE memory. She was Mei Ying. She was that evil, speechless person, I guess, that was the boss of Xia Li and Boa a few years ago in NXT. That really didn't go anywhere with the angle that they were going with. I wish it would have. But, like, for her to go to that character, to the sleepy, fun-loving Wendy Chu was insane. And something about her character and her gimmick, not only the current evil one that she's in, but when she was the happy, outgoing, bubbly one, the Chu crew, there's something about that takes me back to the mid-90s WWF when they had these gimmicks and characters like that. And we don't get that enough in wrestling in today. And the fact not only that she embraced that character so well, but she is an amazing talent. If you're unfamiliar with Wendy Chu, or if you're one of the people that commented and said, who is this? I don't understand who this is. This isn't John Cena. This isn't The Rock. This isn't Hulk Hogan. This isn't Cody. Is this a created superstar? No, it's Wendy freaking Chu. And if you're unfamiliar with Wendy Chu, go back, watch her match against Tiffany Stratton in NXT. It was one of the most fun matches and had so much creativity behind it, but it was an excellent display of what she's all about. It's also an early Tiffany match where she did a very good job too. So yeah, Wendy Chu is my number one pick, and it wasn't even close. Now, putting the regular in the chase, because I don't know which one's which at this point, but I think they're both amazing. And on top of that, this just shows that Mattel can make amazing women's main event figures when they put the attention to detail and the care and the love into them. And they definitely put it into both of her figures, and I'm super stoked. On top of that, a lot of times the sculpts are the exact same between the standard and the chase, but if you look closely at the slipper sculpt looks to be different between the two, and that's freaking awesome. So I saw these figures and my heart freaking jumped. It stopped. I was in awe because I never expected this to happen, even though I've been advocating for it to happen for years, and I always have her on my wish list, and I always talk about how awesome Wendy is. The fact that we're finally getting Wendy Chu figures, I cannot even tell you how excited I am. And like I said, anyone that knows Mayor Aaron knows how excited I am and how stoked I'll be to get these figures in my collection. So yeah, and on top of that, they look freaking awesome. And there it is, my personal top 10 women's wrestling figures shown at the WrestleMania 41 Mattel figure reveals. Now, it was tough to make the list, but I will say I'm glad that it was tough, because last year at the WrestleMania reveals, you know, that's where I went on that pipe bomb promo rant where they only showed 10 women's figures and they showed like 148 men's. This year the ratio was a little better, but we still do have a lot of male-dominated lines, like the Superstar line. We got the Legends line, which we did see a Michelle McCool, but it's mostly men. And the Monday Night Wars line, which had no women shown at this past reveals. Now, the one thing I will say is, how the frick have they not released Medusa in the Monday Night Wars line? It drives me nuts, because it's up for debate whether she got it started with the Monday Night Wars. If you remember, she appeared live on a Monday Nitro and dropped a WWF Women's Championship in the trash can. And that was a big moment, a big, like, FU moment, and really caused a big clash behind the scenes. And they have her under contract. We're getting a really crappy upcoming main event figure of Alundra Blaze, so why could we not get a Medusa in that attire in the Monday Night Wars line? You know, it's every line of that's came out, I just hate it more and more when they don't include a woman, especially Medusa. And the characters that they release in the line, it's hilarious. If you look at the reveals from the Monday Night Wars line, tell me who was asking for half of those superstars. Nobody. So yeah, it's still a male-dominated line. I think Jazzwares does a better job of incorporating women regularly, honestly. Sometimes I feel like Mattel does it just because they feel like they have to, and that shows when there's a real lack of effort put into the women's figures. However, these reveals from this past WrestleMania reveals do give me hope. It gives me hope that they might be starting to care a little more. You know, there's a lot of unique sculpts. A lot of women are being made into figure form that I didn't expect Mattel to do. Also, we finally got some upcoming Women's Wrestling Ultimate Edition figures. And last year they showed off like 20 or 30 Ultimate Edition figures. 0 women last year at the WrestleMania reveals. They showed 0 women at last year's WrestleMania reveals. As far as Ultimate Edition figures go. So I do think it's improving. I don't think it's perfect. I want to see more. But this year was a big step in the right direction, and I'm very pleased, not just with who they revealed, but a lot of the details put behind who they chose. So yeah, I think it's looking promising for the future with Mattel and the women of WWE. So yeah, I'm super excited. So let me know your top 10 in the comments below. I'd be really curious to see, maybe even just your top 5 if you don't feel like going through your top 10. But I'm real excited to read those comments. So without further ado, thanks for stopping by LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Make sure to subscribe to become an official resident of LumberJillville and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figures and also figure-related videos. Thanks for watching. Enjoy WrestleMania Night 2, and have a great night, y'all.